overpromise or anything, but this might be the worst subject I'll ever have attempted with this particular program. Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning on that uplifting note. Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of the other two teams in town that I cover, the Steelers and the Penguins. Pirates 4, Twins 2. Yesterday in Bradenton, there also was a split squad 9-6 loss to the Tigers way out in Lakeland in the center part of the state. In the game in which the Pirates had most of their regular players, Brian Hayes, Joey Bart, and Brian Reynolds all went deep. And Paul Skenes, he had a line that would impress you probably a little bit more than the reality. The line would show that he was charged with 1 run on 5 hits over 4 2/3 innings, struck out 7, hit 100 miles an hour on the radar gun for the first time all spring, did so twice. And no, this one was not a step forward for this extraordinary young man. This one saw him walk 3 and really not pinpoint much of anything the way he'd want. He threw only 51 of his 85 pitches for strikes, needed 73 pitches to get through 3 innings. And that's the extreme opposite of what it is that he's been setting out to do this spring, which is to become more efficient. It's the closest anyone anywhere can come to a criticism of his 2024 season. Not that he wasn't allowed to go into the 8th or 9th. Those were pitch counts that were universally going to get him pulled by any manager anywhere, not just Derek Shelton. It's more that, well, it's the only thing of any kind, large or small, that seems to be an obstacle for him. And to his credit, he was pretty open about that with reporters yesterday at Lecom Park, including our own Greg McAfee.
Yeah, well, I've learned what not to do, which isn't exactly where you want to be. But, I mean, it's a work in progress. I think this is my first spring training, first legit spring training, and it feels different. So I'm still trying to put a finger on it because I know, I mean, the finger, starts pointing at me. So I'm still trying to figure out what it is on my end that I need to do, but also hitters' approaches are a little bit different, so just trying to figure out how to navigate that. But yeah, I mean, I'm nothing's changed. That's still the goal. So just got to keep working for it, basically, toward it.
I'm going to repeat, this isn't much of a criticism. It's not a criticism at all, nor is it even a modest expression of concern. This kid is who he is. He's going to put up extraordinary results even in settings like this, even when he's not at his best. And yeah, even in those rare occasions where he's just not getting the ball to go where he wants it to. But just for fun, and hear me out, this is the bad subject part of it. What do you think would be everybody's reaction? Meaning the fan base, but also media and whoever, all of us outsider types. If things just went south. I know. The Pirates are a tough enough conversation to have without somebody dredging up some hypothetical crap like this. But hear me out, okay? Let's say that Skenes were to have at some point in his life, but specifically here, the early part of the 2025 season, a struggle. 2 starts, 3 starts, can't find the zone, overcompensates a little bit, becomes too predictable. Most National League hitters will have seen him at least once, even the American League guys. For example, the Yankees, the Pirates' first home opponent on the schedule, will have seen him in Florida. And, things just don't go well. What would be the reaction to that? Would it be, oh, woe is us, we who follow the Pirates are just doomed to have everything suck? Would it be, oh no, Skenes is now going to want out because the Pirates are breaking him, just like they break everybody? Would it be the standard Bob Nutting fare, somehow blaming that one on the owner? Or would it be just getting behind him, believing in him, having his back? I'm not a big proponent of the concept that there's some extensive overlap between the fans of Pittsburgh's three sports teams. And that's because I place all three of them in separate boxes. Not universally true, but largely true. Steelers fans, by and large, live way outside the city, like around the globe. Doesn't mean there aren't Steelers fans in Pittsburgh, of course. It just means that they're way more widespread. Penguins fans tend to be younger, like a lot younger. And they are, of course, more popular in our city than the Pirates are, have been for some time. The Pirates base is older, a little bit more widespread than Penguins fans, but not by much. So if I had to equate this to something from the other two teams, I'd look at, for example, the way the Steelers fans, I feel, have always had TJ Watt's back. He's been their best player for some time now. He's been one of the National Football League's best players at any position for some time now. But he will occasionally get double-teamed and chipped and all that other inside football stuff that keeps him from doing what he wants to do, sometimes for even more than a game at a time. And you don't really hear anybody saying, come on, TJ, try harder, do better. The way more prominent example in town, of course, is Sidney Crosby. Sid, contrary to all kinds of biological tests, is in fact human, and he will go into slumps. He will go, 9, 10 games in a row without scoring a goal. He'll even go 3 or 4 without putting up a point. It's rare, but it's happened. He had a slump like that earlier this season, and being 37 years old, you'd think that another thought would start kind of creeping into the process. It didn't. It didn't. That's because the bond between the city and one of its greatest sons is just too strong to be broken. Now, throwing Skenes in with guys like that is probably a little bit unfair, but that's the trajectory that he's on. Not just around here, but in the baseball world, in the sports world. Man, it sure would be wonderful if he'd be granted license like that right from the start. I'm not going to be naive here and suggest that it would, keep him in Pittsburgh for the long term in some sort of isolated context. No, that's going to take a whole heck of a lot of money, but it won't hurt. It'll help him feel even more like part of this. Just throwing it out there. It'll be interesting. Someday. Maybe not soon. When we come back, J1Q.
It's Gun Storage Check Week. Help prevent unwanted access to your firearms. No one wants their unsecured gun to be used in an accident, a suicide, or a crime. Use lockboxes, safes, and locks to secure your firearms. Learn more at gunstoragecheck.org. That's gunstoragecheck.org. Brought to you by NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association.
Today's J1Q comes from Daniel Correa. It's an interesting thought, and I'm not going to lie, it's something that's crossed my mind over the past 48 hours for reasons that might become apparent here. Daniel asks, if the Pirates are only going to sign bad players in free agency, then maybe they should just stop signing free agents. Ben Cherington's doing the same thing every GM before him did. He's signing reclamation projects that no other team wants and whose career would have been over probably if Ben hadn't signed them. Just bring up the prospects. Why the Pirates don't do that is beyond me. There's a lot of layers to this, Daniel. I could do an entire show on this and probably a whole week's worth of shows. I'm going to try to condense it to the point that you made about just not signing bad free agents. And my answer might surprise you a little bit, because you and I can look at Tommy Pham, Adam Frazier. I'm sure that's at least 2 of the examples that you're talking about. And if you pay close attention to what's been spoken about both of those players through spring training, not just by Cherington, but also by Derek Shelton, a lot of it, and I mean a lot, has focused on clubhouse leadership. They were looking for an outfielder and an infielder to come in and, for lack of better terminology, run the room, be the adults in the clubhouse. A lot of times last season, all through last season actually, I'd get asked about the atmosphere, the accountability and so forth in there, and I would just say again and again and again, it's just not that kind of place. Meaning you weren't going to have one individual or a couple individuals just rise up and say, hey, this isn't okay. This effort that we put out there tonight, that's unacceptable. Or you over there in the corner blowing off batting practice today. Or you over there not taking the ball regularly when you're called out in the bullpen. That kind of stuff, it's uncomfortable. It's de facto police work. But anybody who's involved in any level of team sports, professional or otherwise, will tell you it's needed. And if you go back to the last time the Pirates were good, and that, of course, references the 2015 team that won 98 games, my goodness, you had a room full of them. And in some of those cases, they weren't starters. They weren't your guys who were out there every day. It was people like Travis Snyder. Snyder was actually one of the best at this. Not that Snyder couldn't play. He's a pretty good bench piece to have. But what was interesting was that he did not take a back seat in any way to Neil Walker or A.J. Burnett or Russell Martin or Francisco Liriano. All of these guys had their own voice, sometimes within their own clique, but they had real and diversified by position leadership. As far as these two guys go, meaning Pham and Frazier, I'm not crazy about the Pham signing, as I've made clear. I just don't think he's got much left to offer from a baseball perspective, and I don't know nearly enough about him off the field to be able to assess whether or not he'd be some sort of big intangible boost. Frazier's different. Frazier's really different, at least in my mind, because Frazier, with my own eyes, I've never seen him do anything but hit. Now, take this from someone who had a pretty healthy working relationship with Frazier in his first stint with the Pirates. I also didn't see him be that guy, the one who's going to flip over the food table. So I actually feel he's going to be maybe better for the team in the field than he will off the field. We'll see about that. But I do get your point. There is something to be said for not just forcing free agents onto the roster. I'm just sharing here that there might be more to it than what you would have originally thought. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates. We'll be back with another one of these tomorrow.